The slave markets of Station Null 7 smelled like fear and old blood. Commander of the Pack Dominion walked through the crowded halls with his warriors behind him. His fur was marked with the scars of 100 battles. His yellow eyes moved slowly over the cages that lined the walls. There were hunters. They stood 8 feet tall on powerful legs. Their faces were like wolves, with long snouts filled with sharp teeth. They had conquered 17 star systems through violence and strength. Every species they met either served them or died. Today was looking for something special. "The humans are this way," said the slave trader, a small reptilian creature who walked with nervous steps. "Very rare, very dangerous, you will be pleased." Had heard stories about humans. They came from a death world called Earth, a planet where everything tried to kill everything else. The humans had survived by becoming the greatest hunters of all. They chased their prey for days without stopping. They never gave up. They never got tired. They wanted such creatures for their war against the collective. They needed attack beasts, living weapons they could point at their enemies. The trader stopped in front of a large cage in the darkest corner of the market. Inside, 12 humans sat or lay on the cold metal floor. They were thin and dirty. Their clothes were torn. Some had bruises on their faces. They had been captured 3 months ago when they raided their colony. Studied them with disappointment. These were the great hunters, these weak, hairless creatures. They looked like prey, not predators. "They do not look like much," growled one of his warriors. "They are stronger than they appear," the trader said quickly. "Very tough, very smart. They will make excellent hunting beasts once you train them." Walked closer to the cage. Most of the humans looked away from him. They had learned to fear but one human did not look away, a female with dark skin and short black hair. She sat in the middle of the group and she watched with calm, steady eyes. There was no fear in those eyes, only observation, like she was studying him the same way he was studying her. That one said, pointing at her, "What is her function?" The trader checked his data pad. "She is called Myra. She was a scientist on the colony. She studied alien life forms." Made a sound of amusement. A scientist, useless, but there was something about the way she held herself. The other humans seemed to gather around her, even in their fear. She was their leader, he realized. The weak one led the pack. "Interesting." "I will take all of them," said. The price was high, but did not care. The Pack Dominion had plenty of resources, and if even half the stories about humans were true, these creatures would be worth every credit. The humans were moved from the cage to transport containers. They did not fight. They did not cry. They simply walked where they were told, their eyes down, all except Myra. She kept watching everything around her, the guards, the doors, the weapons. She was memorizing it all. On the ship, the humans were given a large room in the lower decks. It was cold and bare, with only thin sleeping mats on the floor. A guard was posted outside at all times. Visited them on the first night. He wanted to see how they would react to him now that they were his property. The humans were sitting together in a corner. When entered, most of them pressed back against the wall, but Myra stood up slowly and faced him. "You bought us," she said in broken language. She had already learned some words in just a few hours. "Why?" Was surprised that she could speak at all. He was more surprised that she dared to ask questions. "You are hunters," he said. "You will hunt for me." "Hunt what?" "My enemies, though you will be my attack beasts." Myra's expression did not change. She simply nodded as if she had expected this answer. Reached into a bag and pulled out chunks of raw meat. He threw them on the floor in front of the humans. This was a test. Among the strongest ate first. The weak fought for scraps. He wanted to see who the real leader was among these humans. The humans looked at the meat. Some of them were clearly hungry. Their bodies were thin from months of little food. A few of them moved forward. But Myra held up her hand and they stopped. She walked to the meat calmly. She picked up each piece and counted them. Then she divided them equally among all 12 humans, including herself. She gave the same amount to everyone, from the strongest male to the smallest female. Only when everyone had their share did she begin to eat. Watched this with growing confusion. This was not how hunters behaved. The strong should take what they wanted. That was the natural law. That was how packs worked. "You give food to the weak," said. "This makes you weak also." Myra looked up at him. She chewed her food slowly before answering. "No," she said, "this makes us strong, all of us." "I do not understand." You will. Felt a strange feeling in his chest. It was not anger, it was not amusement. It was something he had never felt before when looking at a slave. It was almost like respect. He pushed the feeling away. These creatures would learn their place. He would break them and remake them into the weapons he needed. It was only a matter of time. He left the room without another word. Behind him, Myra watched the door close. Then she turned to her people. They were looking at her with hope and fear mixed together. "Listen to me," she said softly in English so the guards could not understand. "We are not going to be their attack dogs. We are not going to be their slaves. We are going to survive this. And one day they will understand what a terrible mistake they made." "How?" asked Thomas, a young engineer with a wounded shoulder. "They are so much stronger than us." Myra smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "Strength is not the only power in the universe," she said. "We have something they do not, something they cannot understand, and by the time they figure it out, it will be too late." She did not explain more that night, but her people trusted her. They had followed her on the colony. They would follow her here. In the darkness of the warship, 12 humans huddled together for warmth. They were weak. They were scared. They were alone in a hostile universe. But they were not broken. Not yet. Not ever. 6 months passed on the warship Fang of Ending. They tried everything they knew to turn the humans into weapons. They used pain. They used hunger. They used fear. They separated the humans and put them in dark rooms alone for days. They made them fight each other for food. Nothing worked. The humans would not break. They would not become the savage beasts they expected. But they also did not resist. They did not attack their captors. They simply endured. Watched the humans with growing frustration. He did not understand them. When he beat one of them, the others would gather around afterward to comfort the wounded one. When he starved them, they shared whatever little food they had. When he isolated them, they called out to each other through the walls. They were supposed to become animals. Instead, they became something stranger, something he had no word for. Myra was the strangest of all. She spent every free moment learning. She listened to the speak and memorized their words. She watched how the ship worked and understood its systems. She studied the crew and learned their names, their habits, their weaknesses. Within 3 months, she could speak language almost perfectly. Within 4 months, she knew more about the ship's engines than some of the engineers. She started making herself useful. It began with small things. A warrior named was struggling to repair a broken communication device. Myra offered to help. At first, laughed at her. What could a human slave know about technology? But his laughter stopped when Myra fixed the device in 10 minutes. Word spread quietly through the ship. The human female could fix things. She understood machines. She was useful. More came to her with problems. A broken weapon, a malfunctioning door, a computer that would not work properly. Myra fixed them all. She never asked for anything in return. She never complained. She just helped. The other humans did the same thing. Thomas the engineer started helping in the engine room. Sarah, who had been a nurse on the colony, began treating minor injuries. David, a former cook, improved the food in ways they had never imagined. Slowly, quietly, the humans made themselves essential. But it was what happened with that changed everything. Was a young warrior, barely an adult by their standards. He was proud and fierce like all. He had been wounded in a training accident, a deep cut on his leg that had become infected. Among the showing weakness was shameful. Going to the healer would mean admitting that he was hurt. Other warriors would mock him, so said nothing. He hid his wound and hoped it would heal on its own. It did not heal, it got worse. Myra noticed him limping one day. She saw the way he held his leg, the sweat on his fur, the pain in his eyes that he tried to hide. That night she found alone in a storage room, trying to clean his wound with shaking hands. The infection had spread. The flesh was turning black. He was dying and he knew it. Myra approached him slowly, her hands raised to show she meant no harm. Growled at her, his fangs were bared. His eyes were wild with pain and shame. Myra did not run away. She did not show fear. She simply knelt down beside him and looked at his wound. She spoke softly in the language. She told him that she could help. She told him that she had medicine. She told him that no one else needed to know. Did not understand why a slave would help him. He had treated her badly. He had laughed when the other hurt her people. Why would she care if he lived or died? But the pain was too great, and he was out of options. He let her help. Myra worked through the night. She cleaned the wound with supplies she had secretly gathered over the months. She used medicines she had made from plants in the ship's oxygen garden. She wrapped his leg with clean bandages she had torn from her own sleeping mat. By morning, the infection was under control, would live. He stared at her with eyes full of confusion. Myra just smiled and turned to leave. Grabbed her arm, his claws could have torn her flesh easily, but his grip was gentle. Myra looked back at him. Tried to speak. Among the every gift was a debt, every kindness required payment. He needed to know what she wanted from him. Myra looked at him for a long moment, then she said words that would never forget. She said that she wanted nothing. She said that he was in pain and that was enough reason to help him. She said that this was what humans did. They helped those who suffered, even their enemies. Released her arm, he watched her walk away. He did not sleep that night. He could not stop thinking about what she had said. In the days that followed, found himself watching Myra. He saw how she cared for her people. He saw how she helped the who came to her, asking nothing in return. He saw the way other humans gathered around her, drawing strength from her presence. He started doing small things for her without understanding why. He brought her extra food. He warned her when officers were in bad moods. He stood near her when others got too rough with the humans. Others noticed this strange behavior. They mocked for being soft on a slave, but did not care. Something had changed inside him. The human female had given him a gift he could never repay, not because she wanted something from him, but simply because he was in pain. Commander watched all of this with growing unease. The humans were not becoming weapons. They were becoming something else, something that made his warriors act in strange ways, something that made them attached. He called Myra to his quarters one night. She stood before him calmly, her hands folded in front of her. Walked in circles around her, trying to intimidate her, but Myra's heartbeat stayed steady, her eyes stayed calm. Demanded to know what she was doing. He said that his warriors were becoming soft because of her. He said that she was corrupting his pack. Myra listened without speaking. When he finished, she asked him a simple question. She asked if his warriors were weaker now or stronger. Had no answer, because the truth was that his warriors were performing better than ever. They were healthier because Sarah treated their injuries. Their equipment worked better because Thomas fixed it. Their food gave them more energy because David prepared it. The humans had not weakened they had made them stronger. Myra said that this was what humans did. They made everyone around them stronger, not through fear, not through force, but through something they did not understand yet. She said that they had expected savage hunters, but humans were not savages. Humans were something far more dangerous. Asked what that was. Myra smiled and said he would find out soon enough. She was right. They were coming, they attacked without warning. One moment the fleet was traveling through empty space. The next moment, 100 warships appeared from hiding and opened fire. There were insects. Each one stood 7 feet tall with hard shells like armor and blades instead of hands. They had no fear. They felt no pain. They fought with perfect coordination, moving as one mind in 1,000 bodies. They had been at war with them for 20 years. Neither side could defeat the other, but today they had the advantage of surprise. The fang of ending shook as enemy weapons hit its hull. Alarms screamed through every corridor. Warriors ran to their battle stations, their fangs bared and their weapons ready. No one thought about the humans. In the chaos, the 12 humans were forgotten in their quarters in the lower decks. The guards abandoned their posts to join the fight. The doors were left unlocked. Myra gathered her people quickly. Their eyes were wide with fear. The ship was dying around them. They could feel it shaking. They could hear the explosions getting closer. Thomas asked what they should do. Should they run? Should they hide? Should they try to escape? Myra looked at her people. These were the survivors, the ones who had trusted her for nearly a year, the ones who had followed her through hell without giving up hope. She told them that they would not run. She told them that they would not hide. She told them that they were going to save this ship. The humans moved through the corridors like ghosts. Myra had spent months memorizing every path, every system, every weak point of the Fang of Ending. She knew this ship better than most who served on it. They had boarded. Their soldiers were cutting through the hull at multiple points, pouring into the ship like a flood of blades and death. They fought them at every entrance, but there were too many. The insects kept coming. Myra led her people through maintenance tunnels and service corridors. They moved around the battles, not through them. They had no weapons. They had no armor. Fighting them directly would mean death. But there were other ways to fight. They found a hull breach in Sector 7. Air was escaping into space. 3 lay dead nearby, killed by before they could seal it. The insects had moved on, leaving the breach to slowly kill the ship. The humans sealed it. Thomas knew exactly what to do. He had been repairing systems for months. In 5 minutes, the breach was closed. They found wounded in a corridor on Deck 12. The warriors had been cut down by soldiers and left to die. No one was coming to help them. The fighting was too intense. Sarah treated their wounds. David and 2 others carried them to safety. The warriors stared at the humans with confusion as they were dragged away from death. They found a fire in the engine section. A weapon had hit a fuel line. The flames were spreading toward the main reactor. If they reached it, the whole ship would explode. Myra organized her people into a chain. They passed containers of fire suppressant from hand to hand. They fought the flames with nothing but determination and teamwork. By the time firefighters arrived, the danger was over. The humans saved the ship 3 more times that night. They sealed breaches. They rerouted power around damaged systems. They pulled wounded warriors to safety. They appeared wherever they were needed, and they vanished before anyone could question them. They were the ship's immune system, fighting the infection that they had brought aboard. But the real test came when the found commander and his personal guard had been pushed back to the command deck. 20 soldiers surrounded them. The commander was wounded. Half his warriors were dead. The others were barely standing. They moved in for the kill. Then the humans appeared behind them. 12 unarmored humans against 20 soldiers. It should have been a massacre. They did not even consider the humans a threat. They were small. They were weak. They had no weapons. The insects focused on and ignored the humans completely. That was their final mistake. The humans attacked from the shadows. They did not fight like charging in with fangs and claws. They did not fight like with perfect formations and mathematical precision. They fought like humans. They fought together. Myra had studied them for months. She knew their weak points, the soft joints between their armor plates, the sensitive spots on their necks, the way they communicated through chemical signals that could be disrupted. She had taught her people everything. Thomas grabbed a fallen weapon and fired it into the back of a soldier. David and worked together to bring down another, one distracting it while the other struck from behind. Sarah threw chemical powder into the faces of 3, blinding them and disrupting their communication. The humans used pipes and tools and broken pieces of the ship itself. They used their bare hands when they had nothing else. They were not strong, they were not fast, but they were clever, and they worked together in ways they could not predict. A blade went through Thomas's shoulder. He screamed in pain but did not stop fighting. He pushed forward, protecting the wounded behind him. He would not let them die, not while he still breathed. Myra faced the leader directly. The insect was twice her size. Its blades could cut her in half with a single swing. She did not run. She looked at the creature with calm, steady eyes. The same eyes that had faced Commander on the first day. The same eyes that had never shown fear. She said one word in the language, a word that meant death. Then she threw a container of engine fluid at the creature and ignited it with a spark from a broken wire. The leader burned. When it was over, 15 lay dead on the command deck floor. The other 5 had fled. The humans stood among the bodies, breathing hard, bleeding from a dozen wounds. Thomas was barely conscious. 2 others could not stand. All of them had fought beyond their limits. Commander stared at them in complete silence. These were not the attack beasts he had purchased. These were not the savage hunters from the legends. These were something else, something he had never seen before. They were warriors who fought not for themselves, but for each other, for that they barely knew, for a ship that was not their home. Limped forward, he had fought beside the humans in the final moments. He had seen everything. He said what was thinking. He said that the humans were not hunting beasts. Myra looked at him. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead, but she was smiling. She said that was right. Humans were not hunting beasts. She asked him if he had ever heard the story of how humans tamed the wolves of Earth. Had not. Myra said that one day she would tell him. She said that it explained everything. Then she collapsed from exhaustion, caught her before she hit the ground. He carried her to the medical bay himself. He did not understand what was happening to him, but he knew one thing with complete certainty. He would protect this human. No matter what came next, the war was over, the had won. It had taken 6 more months of fighting, 6 months of battles and blood and death, but in the end the collective had been defeated. And everyone knew who had made the difference. The humans. Word had spread through the fleet after the battle on the Fang of Ending. Stories of the small, weak creatures who had saved Commander. Stories of how they fought together like no species they had ever seen. Stories of their strange courage and stranger loyalty. Other commanders requested humans for their own ships, but there were only 12 and they would not be separated. They stayed on the Fang of Ending and they stayed with Myra. Something had changed after the battle. The humans were no longer kept in the lower decks. They were given proper quarters. They ate with the crew. They walked freely through the ship. They were no longer slaves. But they were not crew either. They were not warriors. They were not servants. They had no word for what the humans had become. Had a word, he called Myra his human. He did not understand what this meant at first. He only knew that he could not stay away from her. He brought her food. He stood guard outside her quarters at night. He growled at any who spoke to her with disrespect. Others noticed his strange behavior. They mocked him for it. One of the senior warriors, confronted in the training hall one day, he said that was acting like a pet. He said that had forgotten his pride. He said that was putting a slave above his own kind. Attacked him. The fight was short and brutal, was younger and smaller than, but he fought with a fury that surprised everyone. He broke his arm and cracked 2 of his ribs before the other warriors pulled them apart. When asked why he had attacked, could not explain. He only said that Myra was his. Anyone who insulted her would face his claws. More began forming these strange bonds, not with the humans as a group, but with individuals. The warrior whose communication device Myra had fixed on the first day started following Thomas around the ship. He said that the human was useful. He said that he wanted to protect his investment, but everyone saw the way he watched Thomas with careful eyes. Everyone saw how he shared his meals with the small human. A female named attached herself to Sarah. The human nurse had saved his life during the final battle against the, now would not leave her side. She slept outside Sarah's door. She snarled at anyone who came too close. One by one, almost every human found a shadow. They did not understand what was happening to them. These feelings were strange and uncomfortable. The Pack Dominion valued strength and dominance. Attachment was weakness. Caring for others outside your pack was foolish. But they could not stop themselves. Commander watched all of this with troubled eyes. His crew was changing. His warriors were becoming softer, gentler. They still fought well. They still followed orders, but there was something different in them now. He went to Myra for answers. She was sitting in the observation deck looking out at the stars. The bandages from the battle were gone now. Her wounds had healed, but she looked tired. The weight of leadership was heavy on her small shoulders. Sat down across from her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then asked the question that had been burning in his mind for months. He asked what she had done to his warriors. Myra smiled sadly. She said that she had done nothing. She said that his warriors had done this to themselves. Did not understand. He demanded a real answer. Myra looked at him with those calm, steady eyes. She said that she would tell him a story from Earth, a story about humans and wolves. Long ago, she said, humans were weak. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor. The world was full of predators that could kill them easily. The wolves were the most dangerous of all, fast and strong and deadly. But humans did not try to destroy the wolves. They did something else. They invited the wolves to their fires. At first, it was simple trade. Humans gave the wolves food. Wolves helped humans hunt. But over time, something strange happened. The wolves began to change. They began to see the humans as their pack. They began to protect the human cubs. They began to love the humans, and the humans loved them back. The wolves became dogs, and they followed humans everywhere. Not because they were forced to, not because they were slaves, but because they chose to. Myra said that this was humanity's gift, the ability to make others want to be with them, to create bonds that had nothing to do with strength or power, bonds of loyalty, bonds of love. Said that there were not wolves, there were the greatest hunters in the galaxy. They had conquered star systems. They did not need protection from small, weak humans. Myra said that they were more like wolves than wanted to admit. They were proud, they were fierce, they were loyal to their pack. But their pack had been too small. They only cared about other. They only protected their own kind. Humans were different. Humans could make any one part of their pack, even enemies, even those who had hurt them. Remembered the night after the battle. He remembered how it carried Myra to the medical bay. He remembered the look in the young warrior's eyes. It was the same look he gave to their pack mates. He understood now. The humans had not become weapons for the had become pack for the humans. Asked what this meant for the future. He asked if there were now slaves to the humans. Myra shook her head. She said that this was not about slavery, it was about family. She said that on Earth dogs were not slaves. They were companions, partners, friends. They protected humans and humans protected them. They loved each other. She said that the same thing was happening here. The who had bonded with humans were not weaker. They were stronger. They had something to fight for beyond glory and conquest. They had people who loved them. Sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he asked one more question. He asked if Myra had planned this from the beginning. Myra laughed softly. She said that she had hoped for it, but she had not been sure it would work. Humans had only domesticated a few species on Earth. Most animals could not be tamed. She said that she had taken a chance. She had treated them with kindness, hoping that they would respond, and they had. She looked at with warm eyes. She said that they were not monsters. They had just been alone for too long. They had forgotten what it felt like to be truly connected to others. Now they remembered. Stood up slowly. He looked out at the stars for a long moment. Then he did something that no commander had ever done. He bowed his head to a human. He said that Myra was welcome in his pack. He said that she was no longer a slave or a guest. She was family. Myra stood up and placed her small hand on his massive arm. She said that they had always been family. They just had not known it yet. Outside the observation deck, waited in the shadows. He had heard everything. He smiled, showing all his teeth. His human had done the impossible. She had conquered the conquerors. Not with weapons. With love. 2 years had passed since the day Commander bought 12 human slaves from a market on Station 07. Everything had changed. Myra stood in the great hall of the Pack Dominion's capital world. The building was ancient, built from black stone that had stood for 1,000 years. The ceilings rose so high that clouds sometimes formed inside. Banners of conquered worlds hung from the walls. Today, those walls would witness something new. The ruling council of the Pack Dominion sat on their thrones of bone and metal, 12 of the most powerful in the galaxy. They had conquered 17 star systems. They had destroyed countless enemies. They had never bowed to anyone. They were staring at a small human female with confusion and respect in their eyes. Myra wore simple clothes. She carried no weapons. She stood barely 5 feet tall in a room full of giants. But she was not alone. Behind her stood 12 warriors, was at her right side, his scars shining in the torchlight. He had grown in the past 2 years. He was no longer a young warrior. He was a leader in his own right, but he still followed Myra everywhere. The other 11 were the same. Each of the original 12 humans now had at least one shadow. Some had more. These warriors had sworn themselves to their humans with oaths that could never be broken. They would die for them. They would kill for them. They would follow them to the end of the universe. The humans had done something impossible. They had conquered the Pack Dominion without firing a single shot. The council leader, an ancient named, spoke first. His voice echoed through the great hall like thunder. He said that they had called this meeting to discuss the human situation. He said that humans had spread through the Dominion like a plague. On every ship, in every colony, humans were appearing and were bonding with them. Some council members thought this was dangerous. They said the humans were weakening they said the great hunters were becoming soft. Others disagreed. They said they were stronger than ever. They said the humans had brought something valuable to the Dominion. Asked Myra to speak. He asked her to explain what the humans had done to his people. Myra stepped forward. Her shadows stayed close behind her. His hand rested on his weapon, ready to protect her if anyone made a threatening move. Myra's voice was calm and clear. She had learned the language perfectly. She spoke with the confidence of someone who had nothing to fear. She said that the humans had not done anything to they had chosen to bond with humans freely. No one had forced them. No one had tricked them. She said that humans had a gift that had helped them survive on their dangerous home world, the gift of making connections, the gift of inspiring loyalty, the gift of creating family from strangers. On Earth, humans had used this gift to tame wolves and make them into dogs. They had used it to form tribes and nations. They had used it to build civilizations. Now they were using it here. Myra said that they were not weaker because of the humans. They were stronger. The bonds between human and made both species better. They gained creativity, compassion, and new ways of thinking. The humans gained protection, purpose, and a place in the galaxy. A council member named interrupted. He was one of the opponents of the human presence. His voice was harsh with anger. He said that they were hunters, not pets. He said that following humans was shameful. He said that any who bonded with a human was a traitor to their species. He pointed at and called him a disgrace to his bloodline. The hall went silent. Stepped forward, his eyes were burning with cold fire. He said that he had heard enough. He said that before Myra he had been a warrior like any other. He fought for glory. He fought for conquest. He fought because fighting was all he knew. But fighting was not enough. There was always an emptiness inside him, a hunger that victory could never fill. Then Myra came. She healed his wound when she owed him nothing. She showed him kindness when he had shown her only cruelty. She gave him something he had never known before. She gave him a reason to be more than just a killer. Said that following Myra did not make him weak. It made him complete. For the first time in his life, he knew who he was fighting for. He knew why his life mattered. He said that any who could not understand this had never truly lived. Snarled and reached for his weapon. Was faster. In one smooth motion, he drew his blade and pressed it against throat. The council member froze. No one had ever seen a move that fast. His voice was quiet but deadly. He said that Myra was his human. Anyone who threatened her would die. Anyone who insulted her would answer to him. He asked if understood. Nodded slowly, his eyes wide with fear. Stepped back, he returned to his place at Myra's side. The hall was completely silent. Looked at Myra for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. His laughter was deep and genuine. It echoed through the great hall like a song. He said that he finally understood. He said that the humans had not conquered them with weapons or tricks. They had conquered them with love. He said that the Pack Dominion had ruled through fear and strength for 1,000 years, but fear and strength were not enough. They created obedience but not loyalty. They created warriors but not family. The humans offered something better. Stood from his throne, he walked down the steps slowly, his old bones creaking with each movement. He stopped in front of Myra and looked down at her. She was so small, so fragile. She could not fight in single combat. She could not lead an army into battle. But she had changed his entire civilization. Knelt before her. The ruling council of the Pack Dominion gasped in shock. Their leader had never knelt to anyone, not to enemies, not to allies, not even to the gods. Said that Myra was welcome in his pack. He said that all humans were welcome. He said that the end humans would be family from this day forward. One by one, the other council members knelt as well. Even his face burning with shame, lowered himself to the ground. Myra looked at the most powerful beings in the galaxy, kneeling before her. Her eyes were shining with tears. She said that they did not need to kneel. She said that family stood together. She reached out and took his massive hand in her small one. She helped him to his feet. She said that the galaxy was dangerous and cold. She said that every species was alone and afraid, but it did not have to be that way. She said that humans would face the future together, as partners, as friends, as pack. After the ceremony, a young pup approached Myra in the garden outside the Great Hall. The child was curious, like all children. She wanted to know about the strange, small creatures everyone was talking about. She asked if the stories were true. She asked if humans had really tamed the wolves of Earth. Myra smiled and knelt down to the pup's level, stood behind her, watching over her as he always did. Myra said that the stories were true. Long ago, humans had found the fiercest hunters on their world and made them into family. She said that humans had offered the wolves a place by their fire, a share of their food, their protection, and their love. The wolves were not servants, she said, they were family. She looked up at who had moved closer without realizing it. His massive clawed hand rested near her shoulder. She said that they were the same. They were not servants or weapons or pets. They were pack. The pup looked up at with wide eyes. She asked if the big warrior was Myra's wolf. Smiled, showing all his teeth. He said that he was something better. He said that he was her shadow. And shadows never left. In the halls of the Pack Dominion's greatest fortress, warriors walked beside their human companions. They had been the most feared hunters in the galaxy. Now they were something more. They were loyal, they were loved, they were home. The galaxy had expected savage hunters. Humanity had given them something far more powerful. A reason to be gentle.